Okay, I would just say let's start. So welcome everyone. My name is Sophia Hansen. I'm from Startup Campus. And first of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone who is joining us today, our panelists and speakers, and to our partners at Civitta who will be moderating and who helped organize this event. So this program is the V4 Global Expert Readiness Program, which is supported by the International Visegrad Fund. So big thank you to you guys for helping us promote and support this event. And it is organized in collaboration with 3 partners, Civitta Startup Hub Poland, and DEX Innovation Centre within the V4 region. So the program consists of 2 parts. It's an expert readiness program for the best 8 selected companies who are currently receiving personal consultations to boost their foreign expansion, and a 13 webinar series, which is open for all on the topics of healthcare, on the topics of funding, and so on. So today, we're here to listen to the introduction to the Slovak ecosystem, in specific to the healthcare ecosystem. And today's event will be moderated by Martin, who is our colleague and partner at Civitta. So briefly about Startup Campus before I give over the word to Martin. So the Startup Campus is based in Budapest, but we have offices in Berlin and in London as well. We are operating locally in Budapest to boost the ecosystem, and the London team, which I'm part of as well, works on international market strategies and helping companies to boost their expansion. So without further ado, thank you, Martin, and I'll give over the word to you. And thank you to all the speakers and participants, and I hope you will enjoy today's event.
Great, Sophia. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. As I said, my name is Martin Vesely. I'm a senior consultant in Civitta Slovakia, one of the leading organizations in the regional innovation ecosystem, but more on that later from my colleague, Peter. It is a pleasure to be here and host this short webinar this afternoon. And thank you all for choosing to spend this Friday afternoon with us. I'll be your moderator, as I said, and I'll be guiding you through this webinar. We're prepared a short set of presentations that should help you to get a better picture of what has been happening in the Slovak healthcare innovation ecosystem in the past few years. There are so many initiatives happening already, or have happened, or are being organized currently, that I think many of you from other countries, but also if some Slovaks are joining, could benefit from. And we'll also share some incentives, some key contact, some key people that you can approach if you're interested to find out more. So this will just be a taster. Just to give you a more broader context, as you probably read in the invitation, the upcoming decade will bring major challenges, but also opportunities for Slovakia in terms of healthcare and innovation that all of you can be part of. We are seeing very high incidence and growing incidence, and especially mortality of cardiovascular diseases, cancers, and many other major chronic diseases, which puts a lot of strain on our healthcare ecosystem or healthcare system in terms of workload and costs. And our population is also increasingly aging, and in the next 10 years, it will become critical. But this challenge simultaneously creates rooms for innovative technologies and innovators to improve the health outcomes of Slovak patients and increase efficiency of diagnosis, treatment, or follow-ups in the whole system to help the healthcare providers, to help the patients live better lives. And innovation has become a significant part of the answer to these challenges. And we've seen a huge growth of initiatives of strategic priorities that focus on healthcare and improving healthcare in the past few years. Many promising life science and digital health startups have emerged here in Slovakia, supported by a growing number of public and private initiatives. And this afternoon, you will hear from whom we believe are the key people in the Slovak healthcare and life science innovation scene. And they've been heavily involved in shaping our ecosystem, shaping the vision and strategy, but also leading many of the initiatives you'll hear about. So this is a good opportunity for all of us and for all of you to get a good overview. First, we'll hear from Peter Kolesar, my colleague here at Civitta Slovakia. He's a partner at Civitta Slovakia and has been for many years. Then after that, at around 2 p.m., we'll hear from Vit Hanus, the principal at Zero Gravity Venture Capital. Then we'll have a short 30-minute break, followed by a message from Martin Smatana, who's a former analytic and he's a healthcare analyst and a former director of the Slovak Institute of Health Policy under the Ministry of Health here in Slovakia. And he's also currently working on a rising Slovak healthcare startup, Medanaut. To close the whole session, to bring a more sort of visionary perspective, we'll hear from some inspirational words and insights from Daren Wilson, General Manager at Readiness Slovakia, who will shed more light into the startup corporate collaboration in healthcare. And he's been heavily involved in the local, but also international innovation scene, personally mentoring, guiding, and even investing in some promising healthcare startups. So that's all ahead of us. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen circumstances, our partners, Michal Kardoš from Sapi, and Martin Antošová from the University Hospital in Martin could not attend today's webinar. However, our speakers will deliver short messages during their segments on their behalf, so you don't miss out on that, and you can reach out to them later if you're interested. A few housekeeping notes to kick us off. We'll try to keep the segments short and to the point with lots of links, practical information, and contacts. If you're interested to find out more, we would encourage you to approach any of the speakers or look up the initiatives and activities they are mentioning. You can also ask questions here in Zoom using the Q&A option, or you can just raise your hand, wave at us, and ask the question in person. We would prefer that option because we would love to get to know you better, maybe at least virtually. So it's a little bit more natural. It's a shame we can't meet in person due to circumstances, but at least we can try a little bit more interactive. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Peter Kolesar, partner at Civitta Slovakia, to start his presentation of the Slovak Innovation Ecosystem and what has happened and what's ahead of us.
Thank you, Martin. I hope you can hear me well. So as Martin introduced me, I'm a partner in the Slovak office of Civitta. I'm also a board member in the American Chamber of Commerce in Bratislava. And previously, my background is I used to work for the Slovak Foreign Service in our embassies in Tel Aviv and Washington, D.C., responsible for trade and innovation. But now I'm with Civitta, working on entrepreneurship, corporate innovation, and startups. And I will share the presentation, my presentation right now. So it will be more visual. So I hope.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. And now it's full screen. Excellent. So I will talk a little bit about Civitta, and then I will also talk about Sapi, which is the Slovak Alliance for Innovation Economy. As Martin said, Michal Kardoš, the executive director, cannot be here with us today. But since Civitta is one of the founding members of Sapi, we're quite well informed and in touch with Sapi, and we collaborate in a lot of initiatives together. One of the key initiatives in the last months has been Innovate Slovakia. So these are the 3 points that I will discuss today. And throughout this agenda, I will try to basically guide you through the innovation ecosystem with a slight focus on healthcare startups, and healthcare stakeholders throughout my talk. And I'll be happy to answer your questions if they, if anything comes to your mind that something that you're interested to get to know about Slovakia or Slovak startup ecosystem. Feel free to raise your hand or write your question in a chat. Civitta now is an Estonian company, so we're based in Tartu, Estonia, and this is actually what you can see in my background. This is our headquarters in the small city of Tartu in Estonia. But we started off as a small boutique consultancy, actually out of Bratislava, and only 2.5 years ago we joined forces with a much larger Estonian brand, Civitta. Here on the screen you can see 4 target groups that we work with as Civitta. Of course, the most relevant one for this discussion and today's webinar is the first one, startups. So we run a few acceleration programs throughout the region, from Estonia to the Balkans. In Slovakia, I will discuss the 2 main acceleration programs that we organize. We also help startups get financing and grow through through the mixture of the services that we offer to the founders. We also are active utilizing our startup mindset and methodology that we use with startups. We try to apply that to large corporates and help them think differently through our corporate innovation service line. We also work with local, regional, and national governments, helping them draft efficient support policies for innovations and for startups. We also help them draft strategies that can be implemented in order to foster the ecosystem. And last but not least, we also work with universities and R&D institutions in helping them to get funding for their R&D, and also help them acquire the necessary skills to be part of the international research and development ecosystem. So universities, R&D institutions, public organizations, and the government, corporations, and startups are something that we deal with in every day. And something that actually connects all these audiences is the tagline, is our mission. We are the catalyst for the new economy. In everything we do, all the projects that we do with startups, corporates, governments, or universities, we try to catalyze the economy that's coming, be it the technology startups or being the world-class research that we try to support with our activities. So catalyst for the new economy is kind of the tagline and also the mission of the work we do here in Civitta. Zooming in on startups, and I think this is something that probably interests you the most. We have a very strong track record in working with startups, probably the strongest in all of Central and Southeastern Europe. So in all our acceleration programs, we have worked with over 1,000 startups, actually over 1,150 startups in the course of the last 10 years. Those startups raised more than 1.3 billion euros, and we have a network of over 300 people, mentors, coaches, experts, investors that we work with throughout our programs. Obviously, the most some of the very successful startups take most of this 1.3 billion euro raise. So it's not distributed evenly, and probably the most notable alumni or alum of our Estonian program, Ajujaht, which is an Estonian version of Shark Tank. So it's a kind of a TV accelerator. The most notable alum is Bolt, one of the 7 Estonian unicorns that started as under the name of MTAX. When they applied and went through Civitta program, Ajujaht, and now worth over 4 billion euros. So this is just to give you a perspective on kind of the scale that of our programs in the 18 countries that we are active in. And all of this numbers in Slovakia started locally. I mean, only a fraction, of course, of those numbers come from Slovakia, but we started, as I said at the beginning, we started as a boutique consultancy working with startups under the name of Newlogy. Our startup work started with a small startup competition called then Startup Awards, then evolved into Future Now over years. Startup Awards started as a competition for the best Slovak startups. We try to find them, recognize them, and also show the potential of Slovakia abroad. So it started as a small competition and grew to a large gathering of basically all stakeholders in Slovakia, in a large theater, broadcasted on TV, attended by the president, where we really tried to put the word startup and tech entrepreneurship into mainstream. And this is the picture of one of the last, I think, couple or 3 years ago, before the pandemic, the Startup Awards finale in the National Theater. But our work with startups from this, I would say, kind of grand competition evolved into more hands-on approach or hands-on work with startups. And Challenger and Healthcare Lab are probably or not probably, but certainly our flagship programs currently that we have for our work with startups. Challenger Accelerator grew as an initiative of 5 partners in Civitta in 4 countries where we are active. It started as an international initiative that is now actually, the Accelerator is now active in 4 locations. So Challenger Accelerator focused on sustainability and green and digital vertical out of Bratislava. Challenger focused on urban and creative industries in Košice, Slovakia, in the eastern part of the country. Challenger focused on diversity out of Tallinn, Estonia, and Challenger Accelerator focused on AI out of Lviv, Ukraine. And Challenger is a 3-month program, very intense, where we select startups that go through our program, typically from 8 to 12 startups that go through 3 months of mentoring, coaching, expert workshops, networking, connecting with potential clients, and validating their product or service. Right now, we're actually we have our green and digital badge underway with the demo day scheduled for December 16th in Bratislava. And of course, a more relevant program for you and for this audience, and you'll probably hear more about it in the course of this webinar, is Healthcare Lab. Healthcare Lab, which was started as an initiative of Roche together with Civitta, actually out of Bratislava. It's a healthcare accelerator, and we're currently actually starting our 2nd batch of this healthcare accelerator. Healthcare Lab will be focused on 3 challenges this year, very specific challenges that we invite startups to address in the course of the program. And Healthcare Lab is also, just like Challenger, an international program from this year on. So we're working with Roche affiliates in 10 countries now, from Turkey to Poland. I think Poland is the northernmost Roche operation that's involved in Healthcare Lab. And we're also this year partnering with EIT Health, which of course, you know, this is a knowledge innovation community of the European Institute for Innovation and Technology of the European Commission. And it's a network of innovators and kind of a platform for innovations in healthcare throughout the European Union. So stay tuned for Healthcare Lab, the open call that we'll be announcing in 2 weeks, and also for events that we will organize online and also offline in the next 6 months. And if you're a startup that's kind of aligned with the 3 challenges that we'll publish, feel free to apply. Also, Daren Wilson later in the webinar will talk more about how Healthcare Lab is aligned with Roche's mission and what Roche is trying to achieve with the work with the innovators and startups throughout Europe. And this is just to give you a glimpse of how the startup ecosystem is essentially clustered in Slovakia. What are the main players? I will not go through all of them, but as you can see, most of the startup initiatives are concentrated around Bratislava on the west of the country, in Košice in the eastern part of the country, and in the middle in Žilina, with of course the major hubs being Bratislava and Košice. Most of the activities in the startup scene and in the innovation ecosystem has been actually carried out by private players, either NGOs, private initiatives, or companies, and not so much by the government. Maybe unlike in other countries, even neighboring countries, the government is slowly trying to catch up with the emergence of the startup community, and we're strongly trying to also motivate the government to be productively involved in informing this community. So you have here a couple of VCs that are probably most active in the country. and of course Sapi as an association that I will talk about on this slide. So Sapi has been operating for 9 years actually now, as an alliance or an association of more than 130 innovative companies. And the idea was to put together tech companies, advocate for their interests, and create networks of different actors and different stakeholders, which are active in the area of innovation and digitalization. And what Sapi does is 3 main types of activities. Policy advocacy is probably the most, I would say, visible and impactful type of activity that Sapi does. Sapi is regularly invited to consult legislation, to consult new strategies, which are relevant for startups and for the innovation sector in Slovakia. And it is by far the strongest voice of the tech sector in the country. The second type of activity, obviously, related to everything else, is events and network as a means to achieve the goals that Sapi, or the mission that Sapi set to achieve. And also, Sapi has the ambition to collect data and serve as kind of a point of contact for all tech entrepreneurs, investors, and also decision makers, which have the ambition to be in the or to have an impact on the innovation ecosystem in the country. So this is in a nutshell about Sapi. We could talk more about specific activities, but something that maybe I want to spend the most time on is a joint initiative of Sapi and Civitta, and that's Innovate Slovakia platform. So we launched Innovate Slovakia in this July, and the tagline of Innovate Slovakia is empowering the Slovak innovation and startup scene. And why have we launched it a couple months ago? The most important moment or kind of impetus for launching this platform was a strong information gap of startups and different stakeholders in the country, but also kind of missing information about the ecosystem outside of Slovakia. So this information gap we felt like was very strong. There are a lot of programs in Slovakia that kind of deal with startups that are trying to help entrepreneurs, a lot of VCs now, and actually, public organizations that have the ambition to help entrepreneurs. But there was no single kind of gateway or point where people, entrepreneurs, and also foreigners could learn about it. So we felt like, if it hadn't happened until then, it's really time to change things and launch a single most important and most relevant platform for startups and innovators. The second reason was the recognition of the tech sector. We have amazing companies, amazing startups in Slovakia in different sectors, and a lot of people kind of are unaware of the existing startups, but also of the potential that there is. So this recognition of the most successful entrepreneurs was another reason why. And the third reason why was our connection with foreign ecosystems, particularly the one in Estonia. Since we're an Estonian company, we exchange kind of best practices, information with particularly with institutions in Estonia. And Startup Estonia launched a similar type of platform in Estonia, and we basically try to shamelessly copy what they're doing and try to adapt it here, of course, with their approval and with the consultation of Startup Estonia, and being inspired by also other initiatives like Startup Delta in the Netherlands or Elevate Greece in Greece, Startup Lithuania, for instance. So there are a lot of points and a lot of platforms like it, and we felt like it's time to launch it in our country. So what does it do? Of course, you can type in innovateslovakia.sk and go there and play with it a little bit. It's all in English. The first what is helping entrepreneurs, find the support that they need actually to be successful in one place. Collecting data. I think data is key for making informed decisions by both the private players and public stakeholders. Showcasing Slovakia and the potential of Slovakia as a birthplace of many cool companies that are kind of globally known. And also, last point about what Innovate Slovakia does is building a community by organizing events, by organizing meetups and connecting the stakeholders to this Innovate Slovakia platform. So this is all you can find on Innovate Slovakia, and maybe I will dig a little bit deeper on the specific elements. So this is the first point: centralizing and curating info about the ecosystem based on where you are as a startup. If you need to upskill yourself, if you're missing some skills, you can find programs which are specifically dedicated to kind of educational activities. Then if you are an idea stage project or a startup or a scale up that's looking for foreign market, this is the basic division of the services, and this is kind of the visualization of the type of programs that you can find, also type of stakeholders and players, from investors to government support initiatives to co-working communities, incubators, and events. Also, and I think a very important element of Innovate Slovakia is a very practical guide and a pool of resources and templates that we have on the website. So we basically joined forces with the leading legal firms in the country who are active in the startup field, M&A and startups, fundraising. So we teamed up with them and came up with templates for like the most relevant contracts, agreements, be it NDA or license agreement or term sheet, and basically you're showing what it should look like to the startups that might have not ever seen it. And we're providing all of this, of course, for free in kind of our effort to educate the startup scene. On showcasing the potential, we have success stories in different fields. We have startups to watch in different fields. We try to change it so it's not the same. We have notable exits from the past, and also startups that you should watch how they actually evolve, because they are high potential teams and founders that are working on a very, very ambitious project. As I said, data is the key to informed decisions, and the central idea of Startup Estonia was to finally start collecting data about startups, about the number of startups, about the fundraising rounds, how much money they raised in a specific year, how many people they employ, and what is their kind of contribution to GDP, because only then we can see what's happening on the ground, and only then we can make decisions to kind of improve the environment for startups. So you can find actually the first database ever about Slovak startups, and it's crowdsourced. So we allow people to enter data. Of course, there is some kind of curation, so we double check, but the idea is to basically invite the ecosystem players to enter the data if they know about the deal, if they know about a fundraising round. Feel free to add it to the centralized points of data gathering. Importantly, and I'm about to conclude and maybe give room for questions if there are any. There is a section on reports and analysis on the Slovak ecosystem, all of them in English. So you can actually, in one place, which before that was like you had to basically Google it and really dig deep to find out. You know, you can find action plans, you can find analysis of regional ecosystems, of scale-ups, of the recommendations of the European Commission with regards to the startup ecosystem. So all of it is in one place at innovateslovakia.sk. And maybe I would draw your attention, since this is a health tech webinar, I would draw your attention to one specific report, which I think if you're interested in healthcare and regional innovation ecosystems, it's probably for you. And the title of the report is Regional Innovation Ecosystems of the Future Vision Beyond 2020. We published it at the end of last year, beginning of this year. And there's a specific section on the emerging healthcare innovation cluster in Žilina region with listing of the main players, of the most promising startups. So I would really recommend having a look at that if you're interested in healthcare and health tech. Okay, so what's next for Innovate Slovakia? The first point is to involve the community. I think our idea in Civitta, our idea in Sapi was not to do it ourselves. We provide kind of a platform for the community to inform, get information, contribute, add, correct data. And if we don't manage to do it, then we fail. The second point is impact national policy. Data creates informed decisions, or has the potential to motivate decision makers to make informed decisions. So impact on national, regional, and local policy actually is the second. And obviously the third point is to innovate Slovakia and to kind of create the basis or support infrastructure to also being the catalyst for the new economy and help entrepreneurs or help people come up with ideas, help entrepreneurs grow, help projects turn into startups, startups turn into scale-ups, and scale-ups turn into a globally successful companies. So this is what's next. And on that note, I would like to thank you for your attention. And I'm happy, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them as you please.
Thank you very much, Peter. That's great. Thanks for sharing the insights. I think the Innovate Slovakia overview was good, and I encourage everyone to have a look around the website and see if you can find any relevant information. I especially would like to point your attention to the amount of contacts you can gather from there, and also if you want to contribute, we also share very actual events that you can attend in order to expand your networks and connect to relevant stakeholders. So that might be very useful to anyone watching. So Peter, maybe if we can dig deeper into, apart from accelerators, can you shed more light into what Civitta what kind of services is Civitta providing for startups?
Mm-hmm. So Civitta is actually a local hub for a few EIT kicks. So for those that don't know, EIT is a kind of a huge initiative by the European Commission to form these knowledge innovation communities of academics, private sector, and the public sector, to foster innovation and entrepreneurship. And I'm starting from A, but or from the very beginning. But essentially, EIT has local hubs whose mission is to basically fulfill EIT's mission in specific verticals, specific sectors. And I think there are 8 or 9 of those kicks, of those verticals. And we are Slovakia's hub for EIT climate, for EIT urban mobility, and also we are the incubators, are responsible for business creation in the raw materials sector. We have also been working closely with EIT Health in healthcare lab, as I mentioned, and in some other analytical work that we did for EIT Health. And in the past, we have been heavily involved also with EIT Energy, so energy sector, and EIT Climate, focused on clean tech and technologies to fight climate change. In these activities, we focus on organizing roundtables between basically all the stakeholders that I mentioned, public, private, and academic. We do have support programs for entrepreneurs, and we also help startups prepare for EIT programs that are actually provide financial and also financial support and expertise to the startups. So we help Slovak startups kind of benefit from the programs that EIT has in these specific verticals. What we also do as Civitta in the 18 countries is to help startups get funding. We of course have a wide network of VCs and private investors, but more importantly, I think public funding is something that is very much sought after, especially actually, or particularly for healthcare startups, because typically they're very R&D heavy. So what we do is to scan opportunities and also help prepare specific grant funding applications for startups in this field. Wherever you are from, if you're eligible for Horizon Europe or for other international opportunities, or actually also local opportunities in Slovakia, we help you prepare a kick-ass application that has a very high chance of getting the grant. So I think this is, in a nutshell, our work with entrepreneurs and startups. I probably might have forgot something, but these are the most important ones.
Great, thank you very much. And you also mentioned a couple of the success stories in your talk. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about something you believe personally is a good success story, maybe from the healthcare sector in Slovakia, in terms of the innovation?
Yeah. It really depends how we define success story. If it's a startup which is kind of growing fast, raise a lot of money, is addressing a specific and very important problem, and we believe it will succeed. I think this is one definition of let's say, potential success story, or a startup that has exited and the founders made a lot of money. Maybe I will focus on, I would say, the scale-ups that in this health tech and healthcare sector that I believe in personally. So I would say three companies. One would be Multiplex DX, which has a very active founder, and it's actually Pavel and the Multiplex DX team has gone through our Startup Awards competition and program, and I think the Startup Awards bootcamp has kind of contributed to his transformation from a scientist to an entrepreneur, and obviously now he's an, I would say, an evangelist for healthcare founders and entrepreneurs in Slovakia. So Multiplex DX is one. Glycanostics, which has also gone through Startup Awards, actually Future Now, then in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, Janot Tkac being the founder scientist, the only successful holder of ERC grant in Slovakia. Again, a very good example of a scientist turned entrepreneur, or still a scientist, but somebody that could combine, let's say, both. And maybe third, less in diagnostics, or let's say more in digital health, is Powerful Medical, the Herman brothers, and I think they have a very, very strong drive to succeed. A great international network of advisors, raised a lot of money. So these three, if I had to choose these three, I think you would find them on Innovate Slovakia website as well, if I'm not mistaken, in the success story, or startups to watch, maybe startups to watch.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I think that was very insightful. Thank you for sharing your personal view on this. And to all of you, maybe feel free to approach Peter. He left his email in the presentation. You can come back to it via the YouTube recording and get back to it, or you can just look up civitta.sk and find a contact there. So thank you very much, Peter, for sharing your insights.
Sure, my pleasure. Maybe a concluding thought. I mean, I believe that the support infrastructure in Slovakia, but also in other countries, and you will hear more about, or you have heard and will hear more about that support infrastructure in other countries in other webinars. But in Slovakia, the support infrastructure is strong enough that no matter where you are on your journey, from idea to scaling, you will find the support mechanisms that can guide you in your stage actually very well. And actually on the website of Innovate Slovakia, you will find those programs that actually are tailored to you as a student or as an entrepreneur that has high ambitions and wants to scale. So I believe this is the actually perfect time to start, or really go full throttle in becoming a successful entrepreneur in digital health or in health tech in general. This is the time, and we need to support what we need. And this is the last sentence. What we need to do as kind of let's say platform organizations or ecosystem support organizations is to really support and motivate as many young people, or not necessarily young, but as many people as possible to come up with ideas, and not only come up with ideas, because idea is really only a fraction of that, but turn your ideas into initiatives and projects. So I would say this will be also our attention in the next couple of years, to motivate as many as possible people to be active and take initiative, and from those initiatives, kind of global successes will come. I'm very hopeful.
Right, thank you for that, Don. And I believe all kudos goes to the founders that are watching us right now for taking an initiative and going through with their idea and trying to create viable business out of it. So kudos to all of you watching. So thank you very much, Peter.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you later.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So now I'll before we go to the next speaker, Vit from Zero Gravity, I would like to give you a message on one of the key initiatives also that it's actually, Peter was saying that not much public sector activity has been growing in this sector, but we've seen some recent very positive outlook and recent activities that could be interesting for the healthcare innovation community. And one of them is the national biobank infrastructure that's currently being built in Slovakia. Many of the V4 countries already have some form of biobanking, whether it's physical samples or digital samples, digital data. But currently, the first properly formalized national biobank is being launched here in Slovakia. And here's a quick message from our colleagues from the Ministry of Health that couldn't attend today, but because they're actually having a meeting on this topic. And I would just like to briefly share this because it might be useful for some people in the audience. So the biobank will be focusing on cancer and rare disease, and is being prepared by a huge consortium of partners, of major Slovak R&D institutions, of private and public partners, and experts from abroad, from Germany, Austria, etc. And the mission is basically to drive the personalized medicine care in Slovakia, to support the transfer of knowledge from research and also from you innovators into action and into tangible healthcare services and products that can help patients live better lives. And essentially, I would point your attention also to the last point, that it's important that the Biobank will foster alliances with the community, and they're looking for external partnerships. And they'll be gathering lots of data, lots of samples from Slovakia. And why it is unique is because apart from the obvious focus on oncology, what biobanks are majorly focusing on in our region maybe, is also the opportunity to focus on orphan disease or rare diseases, in which Slovakia in certain areas has very high incidence and is number one in Europe actually, which creates a huge opportunity here in Slovakia to validate innovative approaches, innovative medicines, innovative technologies on these diseases that could benefit patients globally. Maybe one example would be the alkaptonuria, which is a very rare genetic disease. Well, already one of the key consortium members of this biobank, they developed an innovative treatment for this that's properly formalized. And it's the Institute of Rheumatic Disease in Piešťany. It's a city in Western Slovakia, where they were part of a huge consortium of 12 academic and research institutions from the UK, from France, and also including some research organizations such as the Slovak Academy of Sciences, specifically the Biomedical Center, which is very active in this field. And they developed the first, registered off-label cure for alkaptonuria, this rare disease. And it was also published in prestigious journals and actually recently approved by the European Medicines Agency and recommended by them as the primary treatment for this disease. So this is just to visualize that it's a great opportunity for anyone that's interested in working on rare disease and oncology. This will be the key initiative. And here you can see the overview of all major R&D institutions that are part of this consortium that you can also approach, because they're looking for partners to work with them on the biobanking. And I know that some of you are more R&D focused, but some are more health tech focused. There'll also be a big database of digital data available at the biobank and curated and will be sort of sandboxed for innovators and startups to test their solutions, to validate their solutions clinically. And one of the key persons behind this project is Dr. Ivica Květiková at the Ministry of Health. She's the director of Institute of R&D, and she's mainly responsible for the legislative and non-legislative arrangements regarding the biobank, but she's also responsible, heavily involved in curating the partnerships with the external ecosystem. And also, additionally, they're providing professional mentoring platform to support innovative biomedical projects associated with this biobanking via their initiative BioHub Slovakia. If you look up biohub.sk, you can find their activities, and they gather excellent mentors from across all of Europe. They can help these initiatives to set up their pilots, but also to work on their intellectual property, because that's something we often see that startups underestimate, is the actual intellectual property they are creating that they need to protect in order to succeed on the market or secure an investment. And maybe you'll hear next from Vit about the importance of IP, because essentially that has very high added value also for investors, because that's something that cannot be stolen and that only belongs to you. So if you're interested to find out more, then I would encourage you to approach Dr. Květiková or look up their platform biohub.sk. Or you can look up this website. So that's this short message on behalf of our partners that couldn't attend. And I see we already have Vit here with us.
Hello.
Hi, Vit. Hello, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Great. I see you have a nice painting behind you. That's a nice background setting. Vit is a very seasoned professional in the investment field. He's currently the investment principal at Zero Gravity Capital, a venture capital firm that has already invested in a couple of healthcare companies in our region, and he'll shed some light onto the activities of what Zero Gravity actually does, what their investments have been like, and how they see the relationship with a startup or innovative company, what they see as the biggest gaps and opportunities for collaboration, and maybe some additional insights what you can think about when you want to approach venture capitals, or maybe you can reflect on the process if you were collaborating with some venture capitals in the past. So without further ado, I'll give you the rights to share the screen, and you can I think you should be able to already, and you can start your presentation.
Thank you very much. Let me start the presentation. I hope you can see the screen already.
Yes,
and now
we can see.
the full mode. Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So once again, for today, I would like to speak about the venture capital perspective to health tech here in the region, but also in the general. I will start with the introduction of the fund and myself, and then we can slowly move to the main content, which I believe will be for like 30 minutes. First, I would like to share with you that the content itself is quite detailed, but unfortunately, we will not have a time to go through this level of detail. But later, you can have a look into the recording itself, and you can find all the details if you are interested in any of these. But in the 30 minutes, which we approximately have for the presentation itself prior to the Q&A start, I will try to highlight the main things which we believe as a venture capital fund that are important. So in a nutshell, about Zero Gravity Capital, we are a venture capital fund based here in Slovakia, and we invest into early stage. By early stage, we mean like pre-seed companies, seed companies, early Series A. We invest as a single investor up to $2 million. But we are also allocating small tickets or even larger ones in a syndicate deals when there is a group of co-investors willing to participate in this round. We are looking for innovative, fast-growing technological companies with scalable business models and innovative global approaches. What is, I believe, quite unique about 100 Ventures or Zero Gravity Capital is that we are a multinational team. So, for example, myself, I'm sitting 50% of time in Czech Republic, Prague, where I come from. The rest of the team or the other members of the team and partners are also in Slovakia. We have also presence in Cyprus, where is one of our partners and directors. One is in Israel, and also some of these are from Nordics. So through this network, we try to leverage the international experience, but also international network, and to interconnect businesses and help them to be scaled abroad. First, I would like to start in the presentation with the affiliation of our fund, which we got so far from perspective of investments into healthcare industry. So the first one, I can definitely mention the Power for Medical, which is AI-powered technology, which is helping to doctors to identify cardiovascular diseases. And through their personalized treatment approach and through the machine learning algorithms, they can really predict and define what kind of even potential future cardiovascular disease the person can have. Another one is a MetaNode, which is imagining data platform, which is helping to identify in MR or CT whether there are any areas for doctors to have a look on and to focus on. And the third one is a Scienticore. They're developing a product called Hyperdata, and they are blockchain technology, which is an data exchange for scientists and commercial institution for the trade or exchange of the data which needs to be securely traded. First of all, before starting with the details or having a deeper look into the investments itself, I believe it's crucial to identify what is the difference between health tech, med tech, or traditional R&D, because you can find a lot of definitions, but those which we are using is that health tech itself shall be used for the optimizing or personal or preventive care, in comparison to med tech, where the med tech is trying to incrementally increase or improve the existing medical issues or diagnostic technologies. In comparison to the traditional healthcare R&D, where you can find the development of new pharmaceutics or innovative facilities or procedures, which really differs, and it will matter as you will see very soon how the investors or venture capital funds are checking these attributes. Prior jumping into the investment itself, I believe all the companies, startups, or innovative technological healthcare businesses shall consider or shall try to be empathic and have a look from the investment perspective, which means try to sit into the driving seat and decide, well, if I'm a venture capital fund, how I would see my company, because all the venture capital funds are usually checking several risk factors. And here I just copied some of those which we as a venture capital fund are checking. So it starts with the transaction, the market itself, and not market by the size, but also all the traditional stuff like currencies, hedging the country in which the company operates, and affiliation to the country, performance, whether the company performs or not, team, whether the team is complete or not, credible, length of cooperation, because everyone wants to be ensured that the team can cooperate long term and everything will work. Product itself, by product it might be any of these either products, services, technologies, or whatever the healthcare company is developing. And then of course market opportunity, regulation, which I believe is a very specific, and you will see in the next slide why this one is a crucial. Competition, traction, financials, and then of course the funding, trust of investors, whether there is someone who already invested, is willing to follow on the investment or to participate in the round, because it always gives a comfort to investors that they are not alone. Then of course sales and go-to-market strategy, return and exit options, and taxes, because it matters as well from perspective of the general business. Speaking about the specifics, and here in this slide I would like to go a bit more into the detail, because I believe this is one of the most crucial things, is that investors are usually differentiating the businesses. Some of the investors are affiliated only to software or to some smaller chunk of the opportunities itself of the field. Some they're combining software and hardware, and some are also willing to invest into new components, pharmaceutics, or deeper tech ideas. So first of all, it's always, investors are always considering the segment. It really differs whether the company is developing something what is either in the health tech, med tech, or traditional healthcare R&D domain, and whether it is B2C, whether it is B2B or B2G, because you can imagine that having cooperations with governments might be quite complicated from time to time, and there need to be a strong assurance that the founders or the company itself is capable and knows what to do with it. Then it is also about the go-to-market strategy and exit timing. A lot of deep tech stuff, as well as pharmaceutics, the R&D life cycle can take up to 5-10 years, even longer with the certifications and so on. But traditional investment funds usually have like 3 to 5 years investment period and then 3 to 5 years holding period. So it is crucial for investor to consider what kind of exit options they will have at the end of their cycle of a fund, and whether there is someone who will be willing to buy out the share or whether there will be already an exit. And this is something what the startups or companies shall consider while approaching the funds, to really know who is the good fit and what might be the level of cooperation in the future. Capital requirements. So first of all, burn rate and runway for how long the company can sustain from the investment, whether there are follow-on investors or not, but also the valuation versus capital required. Of course, that no one wants to have a founders with 10% share in the company in the future, and that's the reason, because the health tech and med tech companies are usually very capital heavy, and capital requirements are very high. The companies are coming very early stage with high valuations. Unfortunately, in this domain, investors needs to consider also the return, and unfortunately, and the risk associated, where the risk usually is quite high, because the success rate, especially in the deep tech or new pharmaceutics and so on, is not 100% assured. While they cannot accept a very high valuation if they compare it to other B2B SaaS businesses, which they see from the traditional corporate or commercial sphere, and simply at the end of the day, investment itself is a business as well. And for very capital heavy industries, usually I believe the grants or the public funding is the best start to go, and as soon as there is a visible success rate, there is a better timing for the private capital or private investment itself, if it's not corporate or something, what might be on. Regulation, of course. Company needs to be aware of the regulation itself, but also whether it is needed. Yes, does the company have the approach, how to solve the regulation, how to be regulated, and how to be compliant with it or not. It might be one of the limiting factors, as well as certifications. If there is a FDA or any other certification needed, it needs to be properly addressed in the risks and so on. And investors are, of course, considering whether this is appropriate investment or not. Next to its team, of course, because every business is mostly about the people who are standing behind, and not only from the technological perspective or expertise in the field and domain, but whether there is also a business capability, whether there is someone who is capable to cover the certifications, regulation, legally, and so on. And that doesn't need to be necessarily internal people, but there needs to be at least an approach how investors are assured that these are covered. And then at the end of the day, exit options, we touched that in the go-to-market strategy, but the amount of exit options, whether there is a commercial, public, or combination, ideally, of exits, or whether there are future financial investors who are willing to take over, all these things matter, and also the history, whether the competitors or others were able to exit successfully and so on. These are, I would say, specifics of the healthcare domain in investments, which are the crucial ones from the traditional set, which I showed before. Speaking of investments, there are several ways. On the left side of the slide, you can see the traditional way for the traditional startups, where everything starts with the family, fools, and friends. Then angel investors, which are investing usually into pre-revenue or pre-MVP or MVP investments, early stage investors where zero gravity capital belongs, and later stage investors that you may already have some financial investors like larger venture capital funds or strategic investors and partners. What is the difference or specific of healthcare is that, especially for very capital heavy investments, because I can imagine that if you are developing something in a research lab, you cannot simply start that you will borrow a little money from your father or from your friends or from your uncle, and you cannot like build it from the scratch. So these deep tech companies are usually starting with the public funding because they are also starting in the scientific centers. Very often we see it. And those are eventually the good partners for the start of business, as well as eventually the in-house R&D, like commercial institutions. There are large pharma companies, large healthcare, health tech companies, which are already having their products, and joint venture from time to time might make sense. And exit, of course, is then a question whether it needs to be fully aligned with the scientific center where it started, or whether the joint venture partner and so on. Companies shall definitely understand the needs, and they shall articulate their expectations to investors. One thing is an investment capital, but next to it there is a legal support with certification or regulations, follow-on fundraising, intellectual property registration, sales, scaling, hiring of additional resources, because usually we see companies and they are very, very professional in their product, but unfortunately the remaining parts of a business are from time to time missing, and that's crucial if you are coming to investors and asking for money, to clearly articulate what kind of support you expect. It's not always just about the money, and it's fair to mention it, and a lot of investors, they have their resources or their network, how they can support you, but simply it needs to be transparent. Speaking of some of the support which Zero Gravity Capital and we are usually providing, is first of all networking. We've been able to, our companies, help them to onboard the advisory and tech board, the scientific board, from top medical international institutions, because simply we know the people there and they're willing to support it. Expansion support in case of, for example, Powerful Medical, the company was scaled to Israel through the partner who is in our fund. Legal support, we've been supporting company with some regulatory topics, follow-on funding through the 0-100 conferences, and now Reflect, the company is also being visible and present, and that's also part of the marketing. So this is just a set of examples how one investor in our particular case and one company which we invested in, we've been able to help and support. And those are usually things which we expect that company will also mention when we are stepping into the partnership or investment. Speaking of the Slovak environment itself, I place here just this general description and how I divided the market. I didn't want to step into details like whether the diagram is about the number of people in the healthcare R&D, or whether it's amount of invested capital or number of companies. But overall, there is quite big scientific and very strong scientific, academic, and public R&D in Slovakia. The remaining portions, I would say, are like 50-50 split into institutional healthcare R&D, which are commercial corporations already doing the research there. And then the remaining part is the commercial startups, which we as a fund are checking, which we are observing and investing into it. If we can summarize some trends which we see here in Slovakia, I would say that there is a strong scientific and product focus, and the people who we are meeting are professionals, like very strong professionals. On the other hand, very often the teams are not complete. I would say are a little bit incomplete because the other aspects of a business itself or functioning organization which is the commercial side, sales, marketing, legal, and others, are not fully covered, because simply it became as a project from the Scientific Research Center. And of course that these might be missing pieces, but we strongly advise all the companies to consider whether they have any network or someone who can reinforce them, or to find a way, at least on a paper, the plan how to be there, how to get there, because those are crucial components of the business itself. And the scientific end product is not the self-sustainable and functioning business itself. There is a still gap also, and in the knowledge of funding or terms, how it usually works with the commercial investors, and we strongly suggest everyone to study it prior to approaching investors. And then I would also say that in 2020 the market was flooded by some trendy or tendential unsustainable COVID solutions. But as we see with the vaccination and so on, the world is moving, and those solutions which are really like a long term are usually the ones which are the most appealing to investors. From this amount, which we see, there is a limited number, but a good number of very strong and prospective stellar companies. And for those, I believe there is more than enough private capital to support them and to help them. If it is not like extremely capital unaffordable business, because higher millions or tens of millions of US dollars are needed for R&D from the very beginning of idea, which are usually those which I believe belong more to the scientific or academic funding. Here is a set of I would say traditional venture capital expectations, how the investment itself may look like. So first of all, everyone is looking for innovative, fast-growing technology, scalable business models, innovative global market approaches, how to be scaled and how to expand, strong competitive advantage in comparison to others. If there is intellectual property, not necessarily registered, but at least unregistered, like the software code or something, what is really like technological based, I believe this might be only a competitive advantage. And then for seed or early series A, the MVP is must, and also at least some kind of pilots or growing revenue traction is something what companies shall provide as a reference of success. Then the traditional VC funds, and I touched that a little bit before, they have the 5 to 10 years holding period. And the capital which we, for example, provide is usually up to $2 million as a single investor, but it really starts also from the smaller tickets like 100, 200,000 for the not very capital heavy or earlier stage ideas. And it can grow up to 7 million in case that we are doing syndicate deals with other co-investors. Some of the terms which you can definitely study, or every single healthcare company can see, is here written, which I believe that setup and team is the most crucial in every single business. Like reverse vesting for founders, having their vesting or ESOP for your individual contributors. Might be definitely relevant, and every single investor would like to see that you are sharing the future success with your employees in case that they work really hard. Bad liver in case that there is someone who decides not to participate anymore and having shares in the company in order not to be stuck with someone who doesn't want to support the vision anymore. Non-compete, and this is quite crucial. Very often we see healthcare companies where the academics or scientific researchers think that they can do still their academic business or their academic career, and next to it to just participate with this very small allocation in their business, which they shall be the leaders and they shall develop 100% commitment, which I believe is quite the same, if not right now. So the commitment itself, that in the future or a very tangible future, which might be projected, people are willing to switch and really focus on it, is, I believe, one of the enablers and crucial enablers of the investment. IP settlement, in case that you are participating on your business with some scientific center, to understand from the beginning, like, who is the owner of intellectual property, how it will be divided, how it will be split, whether there is a participation, decision making, who is the decision maker, is it the scientific center as well or not, and so on. And number of funders, of course, because larger teams are better. On the other hand, if the number grows and the decision making power is too much divided, usually the company is not able to move. And at the end, I believe that venture capital is a science as any other science or the business topic. There is no one who is a guru or someone who is who knows everything. Then I would like to recommend to everyone one of these people who have been standing behind this investing from the very beginning. And here in these books, you can eventually find the best recommendations or the understanding of the field, and it may definitely help you to raise the capital. What are the terms? How the business shall look like with the setup, and so on. So thank you for this, and I'm more than happy to hear from you. Any questions and answer anything of your interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vit. That was very, very insightful. Again, seeing another point of view of a venture capitalist, always insightful. And every person from a venture capital has a slightly different view on this and different take. So it was quite insightful to see this, and it's also good to see point of view of investor that has already invested in healthcare and medical companies. So that's very good. I think the information you've shared with us was very good, but it was quite heavy. So maybe if you could summarize maybe like the 3 key takeaways that you think from a presentation, and maybe if you would like to go back and go a little bit deeper into something you wanted to cover. So I just want to say that there's more time if you would like.
Definitely. So first of all, I believe that everyone shall understand that the healthcare topic or healthcare investments are specific. These are specific, first of all, because of regulation, which is here. Second, because very often certifications, which are in here, and those are crucial aspects. And then also the business segments. These 3 things really differentiate how the investment or how the investors are considering the investment itself, because they expect the traditional return on investment versus the success rate, and success rate is quite the same, or sometimes in the deep tech stuff even smaller. Which increases the risk of investors, and they need to see and understand that the company is willing to monetize and capitalize on the investment itself, and they are able to grow enough in order to create a space for return. So I believe this is very crucial, and those are fundamentals which every single founder shall understand, and based on these, to properly find the right investor. I believe that for health tech, med tech companies, especially those which are deep tech focused, those which are very capital intensive, the founders shall consider whether the private funding at the early stage or right now is the proper one, or whether there is other capital which might be available from already existing public or scientific spheres, which may really help. And based on that, to consider how to look forward and how to move forward with your business. What I mean by it is, on one hand, you can definitely find the grants or subsidies or joint venture with the scientific research centers. On the other hand, you need to understand that having this funding might also create some obligations or ownership rights or decision-making rights of these institutions who provided you the capital. And then you need to be sure that while you are deciding to go for the private funding, that these terms are accommodatable or that they are favorable for the private investors. Private investors are very often afraid to participate or cooperate with the public sector. The reason is very pragmatic, because everyone knows that the decision-making processes are quite rigid. Everything takes a lot of time. There might be complications in negotiations. The people are not fully knowledge or skilled in the investments, which can complicate the future exits and so on. And based on that, the original co-ownership with the public or scientific centers and so on might be great, because it can help you, it can leverage what you are developing. On the other hand, it might be a blocker for some of the future investors, especially those who are like traditional VC funds, because everyone wants to see a clear cap table, clear ownership, the clear decision-making power, and not to be afraid whether the public institution will have the blocking minority or blocking ownership for the traditional commercial business development, which investors want to see and they want to head it for. Then usually these centers are quite familiar or friendly with cooperation with strategic investors like commercial, healthcare, R&D companies or corporations. And there is already existing a way how to be funded commercially, but then it's usually not that appealing to investors if there are any very strong obligations. And I believe this shall be considered at the very beginning of the healthcare business, how you want to develop it, whether you want to develop it purely privately or whether it's even possible to develop it purely privately, or whether there shall be some kind of a joint venture or co-ownership, because it determines eventually the way how the business can move forward. The business itself, not only the R&D and what might be eventually the exit options and so on. So those are all the aspects which shall be considered, and after that to start with it, because clearing all this stuff or changing it on the way is usually very difficult, and sometimes I would say it's even impossible. So those are, I would say, the key highlights which I can add to what was mentioned prior to it.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I think that's very insightful. Thank you. And again, I would like to encourage anyone who has questions, feel free to submit via chat or raise your hand, and you can ask Vit directly, or you can approach Vit via the info email you also see on the slide at the bottom. Maybe one sort of practical question from the point of view of if we get hands down on the process, maybe so from the first point that the startup approaches you as a venture capital company until the very end when the contract is signed, how long do you think in this sector maybe the process takes, and what are the main hurdles in that process from your point of view?
Sure. So those are more questions in one, but let me start sequentially. So first of all, it's crucial, and that's what I'm saying to every single business, that the negotiations might go right, or it might be more complicated and so on. So every single company in general shall consider that the investment process from the approaching investor till the signing may take up to 6 months. there is definitely a buffer. Usually it does not take that long, but if you don't want to hustle with your company or take a risk, to allocate 6 months, I believe is a very safe and proper timing for the investment itself. Usually, how it looks is that if there is an introduction, after the introduction of a company, there are a couple of discussions starting from investment analysts, ongoing with managers, and finishing with partners. And if this group of investment committee likes the business, they are happy to usually invest. But prior to it, the healthcare or health tech specific is that usually those are very technologically heavy ideas, and those needs to be checked. So there is a process of due diligence after receiving a term sheet, or sometimes it's even prior to receiving a term sheet, where investors needs to be assured, and they are asking experts or their affiliated businesses to check whether this business is viable, whether the technology or the idea is working, and so on, whether it is backed by scientific research, whether it works or not, and based on that to do the final go approval. Usually after having a term sheet, that might be a case of zero gravity capital, then the due diligence, not only the technological one, but also the financial one, tax, legal, and so on, it takes approximately 1 month. And during this 1 month, investors are working together, or lawyers of investors together with lawyers of a company are working on the investment documentation, which is being drafted. It's either the convertible loan or SAFE or shareholders agreement and investment agreement. And it usually takes 1 to 1.5 months till the documentation is ready, if it is custom documentation for the company, and all the points, investment points, are being negotiated. After that, after that is a signing. After signing or the initial closing, there is some time period, usually from 1 week to 3 weeks approximately, when investors are asking their limited partners or investors for capital call, and the capital is being raised and distributed to a company. This is how it usually works. So I would say in normal process, it is 2 to 3 months. But every single company, especially the deep tech companies, shall consider that the investment, raising an investment or capital might take up to 6 months, rather to be on a safe side.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that. And so you mentioned a lot of steps in that process, which I think most of the attendees might be familiar with, but maybe something they might not find out from say the public information or the guidelines is maybe what do you consider that the process usually fails on? Maybe what do the teams fail to sort of prove to you, or something that you're looking for but it's not there? You had that nice slide where you had all those check boxes. I understand them as check boxes, but there's obviously more nuance to all of it. So maybe if you can go back to the slide and maybe use that as a sort of assistance. So where do you think the things mostly fail?
This is not, I would not call it a checkbox. It is more a range. Behind each of these lines, you may find some range, and company needs to be in a range on the positive side. There shall be no red flags, and there are levels of really like red flags. Definitely transaction and portfolio. This is usually where all the companies will pass. Market, it is up to investors to decide what markets they are investing in and so on. So if they decide to proceed, that's not a problem. Performance from time to time is being one of the questions, because investors wants to check whether the KPIs were really met and whether the company is going according to the plan. Those companies are usually very ambitious. They have but the traction itself is usually not that strong. So I would rather say that companies shall not to overpromise. It's better to over-deliver and under-promise. This is one of the things which I would definitely recommend and which might be the points. And then it is about the team and cap table. If you see that the team is not committed enough, or that the team is involved in several activities and they are not focused, or they think that this is just like their side business or something, this is one of the huge issues or red flags for investors to consider whether they want to invest into this company or not. And next to it, it is legal stuff. It is not in here, but while you are running the legal due diligence, you are checking really the contracts of company, and you see what is the real liability of company, what is the real protection of intellectual property, whether the company is really GDPR compliant or not. And there might arise sometimes fixable points, and sometimes the things which are very hard to fix, and then it is up to company whether company is able to clear it or not. Because simply investors cannot step into a risk which is not aligned with some industry standard or with some legal expectations or some legal standards. So this is, I would say, where companies shall definitely focus on, and those are usually the points where are huge discussions. I'm not saying that it is a deal breaker. Usually it just prolongs the process, sometimes even for a long time period. But having clear ownership structure, having clean legal entity, being focused, and so on, are kind of preconditions or it's increasing simply the chances of your successful investment.
Very good, very good. And maybe can you give us maybe some more hints how to better prepare for this process? What do you think, if you maybe, let's say, take we don't have to name a company that you went through this process with and they sort of failed on some of these points, what would you maybe say to them, like maybe you should have thought of this in advance in this sort of framework?
Yeah. So first of all, what I would do, I would recommend them to study venture capital or investments itself. One of the things where one of companies and a deep tech company failed were the expectations. The expectations where it was purely scientific team, which is not wrong. At the very beginning, it might be purely scientific field team doing being in deep tech field. On the other hand, the team shall understand that their business is not only about the product or tech, and they shall be ready sooner or later for being covered legally, being covered from business perspective, and so on, and not to believe like, well, here we have a product, we have idea, and that's it. Simply everyone will love it, everyone will invest into us because we have this idea and so on. That does not work like that. So that's one of the biggest mistakes. And second, understanding of the investment terms and conditions. The best book about it, which I can recommend, is from Flat Mandelson, Venture Deals, Be Smarter Than Your Lawyer, which is a really cool book. It's 150 or 200 pages of partially legal text with explanations, and it explains what are the protective provisions. Like, so what investors expect that what kind of rights you will give them, what kind of rights you shall have as a company, not to be under any scrutiny of investors as well. So I believe it works both ways. And this one is something what I would definitely recommend to everyone who is considering an investment to read, because the people will understand what does it mean, the liquidation preference, and how investors wants to be protected, assure what kind of rights they shall have, and so on. So this was also the second thing which I would recommend really to study and understand what you are stepping in while stepping into investment, not to be surprised during discussions and say, well, I didn't know that, I'm afraid, and so on. It's it's very immature, unfortunately, and it may place a bad look on it.
Yeah, definitely, impressions matter. Okay, and maybe the last question I would have. So you sort of highlighted the three main fields or technological fields in healthcare, being the software, the hardware, and the pharmaceuticals. Maybe sort of more of a broader question from your perspective as a venture capitalist. Which one do you believe to be the hottest currently in our region? Which ones maybe you're looking at more actively from those areas?
It's
very more specific technologies in mind, maybe, if you have.
It's very difficult question, because we've been so far more focusing on the technologies and software itself, and being in field where people are developing the cure against the cancer or pills against the cancer, pharmaceutics and so on. It's very hard to say, well, this one is like top hot. From my view, we are very proud, of course, of Powerful Medical, because Powerful Medical was able to win the Crystal Arrow in Slovakia, which is a very prestigious award. But I believe the research which is being developed right now in Slovakia, and I don't want to name particular companies, in a cancer, especially proteins and the components which they are developing for the very fast indication of cancer, the better cure, and so on. This is something what I believe is very strong in here. It's very scientific and deep tech, of course, which might be very complicated to invest for private investors, especially in early stages. On the other hand, I see a strong traction in the Central Europe. Sotio as well in Czech Republic, the company developing Diana Technologies. Those are, I would say, more later stage, not the startup companies, which we usually invest in, but those are strong, very young and fresh companies, being very active and very successful so far in the deep tech research.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I know that was a difficult question, but you told me that you've heard them all. So I took the challenge and I tried to challenge you. So thank you. Unless there are any questions from the attendees, I mean, you can raise your hand now or remain silent forever. Of course, you can approach Vit later on. We'll also hear from Martin Smatana from Mendanot, another portfolio company from Zero Gravity that's also on a good track later on after this short break. But apart from that, I would really love to thank you, Vit, for your contribution. I think it was very insightful and very, very well presented. So thank you very much. If you have any last thoughts or words that you'd like to share with us.
So first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to present. And second, I would like to advise everyone not to be afraid and really to try to build something new, because it's highly appreciated not to stay as a general researcher, but to do something own. It's definitely a challenge, but it might be also fun, as well as the fundraising and investors and everything. I don't think that we are like wild animals. So I would like to definitely encourage everyone to consider the capabilities and eventually start.
Great, wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good rest of the day and good weekend. And for the rest of you that are staying here, we'll have a short break until 3:15 of Central European time. So sort of 30-minute break. And we'll see you back with Martin Smatana from Mendanot talking about,
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Vit. So thank you, everyone, and see you very soon. Perfect, thank you. So hello everyone, welcome back after a short break, or welcome back in general if you're joining us just now. So in the first half, we've heard from Peter Kolesar from Civitta Slovakia about the general Slovak innovation ecosystem and about the project Innovate Slovakia. After that, we heard from Vit Hanus from Zero Gravity Venture Capital about the point of view of a venture capitalist of a medtech or a health tech company and some tips and tricks, or hopefully he uncovered some myths the startups usually struggle with. And now we're joined by Martin Smatana, excuse me, I might say a true healthcare management expert here in Slovakia. Daren is also joining. Hi, Daren. Hopefully to hear from Martin what he has to say. Hello, Martin, welcome.
Hello, hi.
Hi. I think I switched off your camera just in the meantime, so yes, we can turn it back on. Okay, so a brief introduction about Martin. He's currently the CBO in Medanaut, a company you've heard about from Vit. I'll just reiterate that Medanaut is bringing a revolution in medical imaging. They're developing a web-based medical imaging data platform with AI-powered diagnostics and annotation so that radiologists have better time and easier reporting disease and identifying very serious disease. Martin has background in health management and policy. He's the former director of Institute of Health Policy that was working under the Ministry of Health here in Slovak Republic. And here in Slovakia, he's considered as one of the main experts on healthcare management, and we're very happy to have him here. And he'll talk more about the current status of healthcare and innovation here in Slovakia, about some challenges and some opportunities for innovation. So Martin, the floor is yours. You can start sharing your screen.
Perfect, thank you very much. I'll just open this and share this.
I can't still see your camera, so I'm not sure.
Yes, you should see my screen right now, right?
We see your screen, but we don't see you as a person. But that's...
Okay, sorry. I'll just turn my camera now. It still says I cannot start my video because you prohibited it, but...
Sophia, can you maybe help us? Sophia from Startup Campus. She's the host now.
Anyway, I can describe you what I'm wearing. It's a purplish jumper, and I'm in High Tatras because it's a Tatra summit these days. Okay, so I'll try to. Okay. Okay, it doesn't work now, but I will figure it out probably during the process. Okay, now it works now. Still, anyway, so in the meantime, thank you for the introduction. I prepared my own introduction because I think this topic, even though it's extremely serious, I think it needs a bit of, let's say, positives. So I prepared a brief introduction about myself, and I picked the worst picture I've ever had taken. As you can see on the left, this picture was taken by Hospodárske noviny, which is one of the most serious newspapers in Slovakia, during one of my interviews, and they told me, please act serious, and they placed this background for the picture. Anyway, I use it for my Valentine's. Just briefly and in more detail about my background, I am Oxford and Imperial College graduate. I worked 4 years as a Director General at the Ministry of Health. I was responsible for Institute for Health Policies. Institute for Health Policies is responsible for everything, was responsible for everything in relation to the budget, data, large-scale projects, reforms, value for money initiatives. So basically everything that involved numbers or euros, basically. I've been also member of several supervisory boards, EU Commission, working parties, OECD, WHO, and I am still, as of today, member of the board of a variety of boards of the largest health insurance companies in Slovakia and a variety of other NGOs or non-for-profit organizations. Also, I'm not only involved in Powerful Medical and Medanaut, I'm also having having my own consulting companies, and I'm advising several ministries in the Europe and Middle East region, right? So in relation to the topic of innovations, I know that Slovakia is not regarded as an, let's say, innovative country or a country that would be used as a best practice example. And it is true. This figure is taken from Innovation Union Scoreboard, which is a yearly update that EU Commission does, and it ranks countries in terms of how innovative they are. And as you can see, Slovakia is 5th worst in the entire EU, which is actually still very good placement, considering that the only reason why we are 5th and not 2nd is one indicator, which is the number of PhD graduates per 100,000 populations. And in Slovakia, it is rather customary that if plenty of people randomly do PhDs, even though they don't want to do research or they don't want to pursue the career in academia. So basically we are in practice 2nd. So it's Romania, us, and then Bulgaria. And yet I still believe that Slovakia offers a massive opportunity for healthcare startups, providing you are lucky enough that the startup is within the limits and ranges of, let's say, legislative framework in Slovakia. So to start with, I know that, and you know very well, that R&D environment is shifting away from old school, large, massive standard pharmaceuticals, which need billions of dollars to deliver a product. There was a nice study in 2020 in the US, which actually calculated that you would need roughly 985 million euros up to 1.3 billion dollars in order to deliver a standard pharmaceutical product into the market. The situation has been changing in let's say recent years, and a good example is actually BioNTech, a company which is probably known because of BioNTech Pfizer vaccine. The BioNTech is a company which is actually very, let's say, precise and focused on very specific bits on technology and how to apply it into practice. You probably know these days that it's extremely wealthy and successful company, but in December 2019, before COVID, they actually had to get a 50 million euro loan in order to finance its R&D activities because they didn't have sufficient cash flow in the company. And also in 2020, right after they got pre-approval of the vaccine, they had to get another loan by European Investment Bank in order to be able to proceed with their the vaccine manufacturing and development processes. Furthermore, recently, the most successful and the most innovative products are not the standard pharmaceutical companies, which still are the cornerstone of everything that we do and everything, most of the medicines we take, but most of the successful companies, according to the Fast Company, according to the Times, according to Guardian, are small startups which are focused primarily on data and data utilization into the practice. This is one of the articles which picked 10 most, let's say, innovative, potentially value-adding companies. Every single one of them, I just managed to shrink 7 out of the 10 into the screen, are in relation to using data, using a point-of-care diagnostic, using a direct link between a patient and a doctor. And these are the companies which don't require plenty of employees, don't require hundreds of millions of euros to deliver a product, and yet they tackle the challenges of the society that we have today. And this is the most important thing, because let's say the standard large pharma, they deal with the issues that such as civilization diseases. You know, it's extremely important, yet these days we have new challenges and we need to have new solutions to face something that large standard pharma companies can't. For example, aging society. You know, basically you can't stop aging. It's basically the better the standard pharma, the more the higher the average age in the population will be, basically. This is a situation in Slovakia. According to the latest EU Commission report, Slovakia is one of the most, let's say, the aging is the most progressive. And this summarizes the fact that as of today, we have roughly, it was in 2017, roughly 5.7% of GDP is spent on healthcare just because of aging. then they didn't take into consideration anything else, we would have to spend 1.1% of extra expenses by 2070. You would think that 2070 is far away, but the aging is, according to the latest budget, budget that was approved by 2020, worth nearly 40 million euros. So just because of people are getting older, people actually can live extra years, it costs 40 million euros, nearly 40 in 2021. So the something that standard pharma company can't solve is that we have extra demand for healthcare services, right? And this is actually even more important fact and figure. This was taken from the OECD report. They do something which is called health state in population. I am one of the authors of Slovak health state in population. And it shows basically that Slovakia is actually really lacking nurses and doctors. This is, let's say, the average. Here is Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, and some other countries, which means that the more patients we have, the more personal resources we will need. Unfortunately, some countries are already really lagging and they have depleted resources. And it's not just Slovakia, even though the Slovakia's predictions are very dim. These are the numbers. I did this analysis myself. It was approved by government in 2020. And it basically says that by 2030, Slovakia is going to need 10,000 extra nurses, which we don't have today. Basically, it's not only Slovakia, it's also Germany, it's the UK. For example, according to Germany's Association of Doctors, they are going to face a shortage by 2025 of at least 30%. The same is when it comes to the NHS, not only because of Brexit, but also because of Brexit, they are going to face a shortage of 350,000 of personnel. And this is something a standard pharmaceutical company can't solve. They can improve the well-being of population. They can reduce some of the demand because the people will not be ill. But the better the standard pharma is, the more people live, and the more demands on the staff, more demands on capacities will be placed. And this is a nice illustration of one of the challenges that we are facing now. Furthermore, as you might have noticed, especially during the pandemics, the people are getting more proactive. They are more, let's say, empowered. They think they know, right? They think they know what is the best for them, which basically, when I was still doing my degree at the Imperial College, it was focused on health economics. I was told that this is a good thing, right? That people will know more, they will behave better, they will act more reasonably. But in practice, the opposite is true. This picture on the left, you might have read it about it or saw it on YouTube. The people were lighting 5G antennas because they thought they are spreading COVID in the UK. And this on the right is a screenshot from one of the web pages in Slovak. It's called Modrý koník, a blue horse, which was supposed to be a, let's say, a platform for people to share the experience, but it turned out into a platform which shares all different types of hoaxes, and instead of making people empowered to behave, let's say, in more reasonable way, it made them empowered to behave in the let's say the least favorable way. They became more aggressive, demanding something which is not within the let's say resources of any country. So these are the challenges which every single country is facing these days. This figure, it was taken from Times, and they looked into what they believe to be the biggest value adding, let's say, innovation into healthcare. And it is not the outcome of large pharmaceutical companies, even though I don't want to say anything bad about them. They are still the massive cornerstone of everything we do. My point, why I use this graph and figure, was to illustrate that every single of, whether in next 5 years or 25 years, value adding activities is something that you don't need plenty of employees and plenty of resources to implement, right? It's all about focusing on patient. It's all about building a relationship. So moving away from transaction to a consumer relationship building processes. It's something that every country needs. And this is something that even small country like Slovakia can support. This is the reason why I put this bit small, which Slovakia has on the right corner, because all you need for this is a good environment and a good data set. right? And from one perspective, Slovakia has everything that you would need in order to, let's say, start up your company, right? So why do I say this? Is because in 2011, and they start basically in 2013, Slovakia established a company which is called a National Health Information Centre. These guys, luckily, they have their webpage also in English, so I screenshotted it here. They collect all the data from every single health provider, from every single pharmaceutical company into the one place. And they then provide some, let's say, rough statistical figures about it. Those figures, those statistics are not to use to any startup, but at the same time, they are collecting individual level data, not only from every single health insurers or provider, but the data is available at the level of every single patient, which has a unique ID, right? These informations are not, let's say, published, but they collect the data, and it is possible to access the data, right? The data that National Health Information Center has does not contain information about the clinical results. They contain information about, let's say, payments or activities, but I will get into this in more details. But still, this can be used to, let's say, great deal of initiatives. This is another screenshot. Unfortunately, this one is only in Slovak, which summarizes that what a National Health Information Center has at its disposal at the level of patient, and it basically is everything, right? All you would need is the clinical results. So you wouldn't get an imaging, you wouldn't get if a test was positive, you would see only that there was a test, there was a CT taken, there was a drug taken, the patient died, patient moved to another hospital. These type of informations are nicely processed, and data is available as of 2013, right? So in more details, the data which they have at their disposal is that you can have an age, gender, unique ID, diagnosis of the patients, all different types of medicines, treatments, everything which was paid for. So this can be used for fraud detection mechanisms, prescribing patterns, HTAs, accessibility analysis, and also to calculate if a specific new alternative innovative treatment has added value, because if it has, you would see that patient doesn't require the many of medicines or treatments, basically. These data sets were basically available on the website of the ministry in, let's say, pre-processed format up until COVID, because during COVID, unfortunately, because of time pressure, National Center of Healthcare Information made several mistakes, and some of their applications leaked information, and then they decided that for safety purposes, they are taking down every single piece of information they published. Anyway, these pieces of information are available as long as you contact the correct person and state the purpose of the let's say the project you have, and as long as you can provide all explanations, cost benefit analysis, and find an agreement, written agreement, the ministry, you can have the data set. The only thing that limits the data set is that if you have a specific filter which would that outcome of the filter would be 250 of the lines or less, you wouldn't get the data, right? So let's say the safety trigger is 250 lines of the data for a specific filter. So if you select, let's say, a gender females, age 10, and then you would like require specific information about the patient in terms of the medicines taken or hospitals, etc. If the resulting number of patients would be 250 or less, you wouldn't get the data. But if it is 250 or more, you would get everything that basically you need. For the Ministry of Health data sets is currently responsible the director of Institute for Health Analysis, Maciej Mišik, who is very willing and very, let's say, open-minded guy. Unfortunately, we are having another COVID, let's say, wave these days, so he is a bit busy, but basically he's the one to contact. So if you are interested, just say, and I will send you his emails and also let me know, and I will let him know that you will get in touch with him, because the data set can be used, and we actually used in practice in several projects. And one of the projects we used it for actually was the Powerful and the Medanode, the companies that I have been involved with, but I will get into that in more details. Right. So another source of data we have in Slovakia is from providers. So either directly from hospitals or outpatient providers. There is no legislative framework other than basic GDPR that would govern data sharing, which means that you would have to have a direct contact and direct relationship with that particular provider. But basically, in practice, it's only large cardiovascular institutes in Slovakia and then some hospitals which are happy to go into, let's say, pilots or data sharing, because basically they don't have either sufficient time, resources for that, or they just don't want to get, into any potential problems with data sharing and GDPR. Right, but as I mentioned, the large cardiovascular institutes, they can govern plenty of potential projects, plenty of potential startups, and that is actually reasons why we managed to kick off Powerful and Medanode, help in some bits and pieces, because these both applications are using data which can be processed from these cardiovascular institutes. There are 3 in Slovakia, basically, which is not as many, but still sufficient to get at least some data sources, some starting points that you can then expand in other countries. What is important, that in order to access this data, it's always crucial to get in contact with Ministry of Health before that. Luckily, currently, the Ministry of Health has its own AI department. It is head by Lukáš Palaj, this is his contact, and his director general is Martus Šesták, who is actually very busy doing plenty of other projects, but these are the guys to contact if you are interested in accessing some of the data from hospitals. Of course, data has to be GDPR approved. The data has to be collected for research and education purposes, but luckily most of these institutes are basically university or teaching facilities. So basically everything they do could be used for such purposes. Third data source we have in Slovakia comes from health insurance companies, right? Luckily, we have only 3 in Slovakia. One is public, the largest one. 2 are private. They have a very similar data source which National Center for Healthcare Information has, but the data is, let's say, more up-to-date with more pieces of information. And of course, National Center for Healthcare Information, if a company comes with a good idea, nice startup, they save money, it does not benefit National Center for Health Information, it benefits health insurance companies, and that is why in many cases they are the best things the best organizations to contact for pilots. But national, where it is the large public health insurance company or the 2 private ones, usually they are the good companies to contact once you have, let's say, a final product to pilot, because they need final results and the final, let's say, characteristics in order to assess if it is good for them, if it is risky for them, etc., etc. But anyway, yesterday, yes, it was, day before yesterday, Slovakia had the biggest healthcare, let's say, conference. It is traditionally one of the last ones. It took place in Bratislava, and there was one of the slots which was focused on digital health. This is the screenshot of the healthcare summit and everything. And there was a speech which was given by Marian Factor. He is the head of the procurement and relationship with providers from not the largest one, but the largest private health insurance company. And he had a nice speech where he mentioned that he really believes in all these small innovative AI startups, because they are currently piloting some and the results are amazing. So basically, once you have a good product, our health insurance companies are in most cases willing and happy to try, as long as you have clear business case, at least pre-approvals and basic GDPR and all legislative let's say, requirements in practice. So therefore, they are very happy to raise a pilot. And now I will use an example of Powerful Medical to see, well, that actually what I'm saying is not just a imagination, but it can, all of these resources can be used into creation of a product. So basically, you probably know Paraphomedical as one of the Slovak startups. I copy-pasted this from their the DEX. Basically, it was started by Martin and Robert Herman in 2017. They have a product which reads EKG, and then based on European standards and some piece of information, within seconds suggest the most suitable, let's say, reading of the EKG, as well as treatment and medicines. Basically, that's in a brief summary what it actually does, right? And I think this here on the right, this is me in one of the debate for Forbes in Slovakia, right? But the reason why I'm using this example is they started a nice pilot. The pilot is, I think, currently being run by 2 of the 3 health insurance companies. They started just in October 2021, and they've agreed with the health insurance companies, 2 of them, that they will roughly try the product on 1,400 patients. They picked 60 general practitioners in Slovakia, which represent and can be then statistically processed into let's say, meaningful results. They've agreed 2 deals. One was for half and one was for full year. And the goal is actually to prove that their solution saves money, basically, right? It's more efficient management of vascular patients, and they can prove it by comparing a controlled versus basic group of patients. What is more, the bit why I'm mentioning is that they've not only agreed with health insurance companies that they can do it and they will monitor the process, but as you know probably well, it is extremely important in order to implement an innovation is to facilitate, is to persuade doctors to do it. And the best and the easiest way how to persuade them to use a new innovation, a new product, is actually to incentivize them by money. Right, and this is actually what they agreed with the health insurance companies, so that that those insurance companies are paying an extra for that particular GP if he is using the product, and he is using the product at least within some number of patients and cases, right? And this is something that can happen in Slovakia, and we are a small, flexible country which can run it within, well, let's say, this can happen and be pre-approved within a couple of basically weeks. Paraphomedical does not stop there. They are already in touch with either Ministry of Health or other associations in Slovakia and companies, and they want to utilize the fact that we are small, flexible, and we can become as a country as a sandbox for products to try to show that the new innovation has an added value, which maybe does not have that much commercial potential in Slovakia, but can be, let's say, expanded in other countries where the market is much bigger. Oh yes, and I see that from the chat, from the general health insurance companies, from the director of strategy, that he can confirm this for the largest health insurance company. So yes, thank you for that. Right. So in summary, it has to be said that Slovakia has a massive potential. Unfortunately, not for every single startup. The problem is that we do not have accessible GDPR pre-processed or GDPR approved pre-processed data on some bits and pieces. Unfortunately, the information is available, but not in the format that could be easily exported within all the safety measures. But all the data I just demonstrated, all the pilots I showed, that is possible. So if you have a solution which is in cardiovascular or some imaging bits and pieces or some point of care diagnostic, these are the things that have sufficient data sets, people with, let's say, sufficient passion in terms of people who can actually get you the approval and the signatures you need. So the people in regulatory positions. It is true that currently the Ministry of Health is a bit unstable because of COVID, and National Health Information Center is also a bit unstable because of the 2 large-scale data leaks we had over the past year. But basically, I believe these processes are temporary. We still have very stable health insurance companies, which are very open in most cases to innovative products. So I believe Slovakia is a nice starting sandbox for most of the startups. So please feel free to contact me anytime if you need to get in touch with either the ministry or people at health insurance companies. I'm always happy to send you the contact address to the person who is responsible for your particular specialty, because I believe that small startups like this can make a big difference, and Slovakia is nearly amazing, nearly the best opportunity for you to try your product in. And that is everything for me. And these, let's say, screenshot and the pictures are some of the startups which I think started all in Slovakia, which I believe have amazing potential. As I said, probably not from money perspective in Slovakia, but in other countries, but they started in Slovakia. So that's it. That's it from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Martin, for an insightful, very concise, but yet insightful presentation. I think a lot of insights can be taken from it, and I especially liked how you took the approach of identifying the early adopters, so to speak, so people who are willing to collaborate on innovative projects, and the attitudes of them. And it's always great to see, and I hope people will take the initiative and reach out to the relevant stakeholders. Maybe one question for mine that I would have, and I would encourage anyone in the audience to also ask any questions that you have for Martin. But my question would be, so you mentioned, approaching the different stakeholders, let's say the hospitals, the insurance companies, and let's take the example maybe of Powerful Medical, Medanaut. So as we maybe understand it, there are different needs that they have and different perspectives or incentives. So how did you tailor the value proposition for each of those stakeholders? What sort of buttons did you try to push? What did you see they were reacting to when you were approaching them with your product or with your idea?
Right, it actually depends. But basically the issues I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation are the issues they are listening to. So if a solution comes that can help overcome a problem of depleting resources, that's like it's a home run, right? Basically, if you can say that you wouldn't need, you would save 2 hours of work of a doctor, that's something that has extreme value because of that's the biggest issue in Slovakia these days. So if you tackle your value proposition, or if you look at your value proposition from the perspective of these big issues in Slovakia, that's something that large-scale stakeholders and the Ministry of Health and all the state large partners listen to, because these are the problems they have. Basically, yes, it is true, Slovakia doesn't have sufficient resources in the healthcare system, but this is something that can be changed within a couple of days if a government decides to, right? But you can't solve an issue with the lack of doctors or nurses, or with the fact that we are aging, or with the fact that we have some areas in Slovakia which you can't basically access within 30 minutes of a car, right? These are the solutions these are the problems that require such solutions that I believe that are offered by small companies that we are talking about.
Perfect. Thank you very much for a great answer. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to mention that you didn't have room in the presentation that you maybe would like to go back to, or do you have maybe
yes,
a closing message?
Maybe one thing, because I don't want this presentation to have a, let's say, the conclusion that standard large-scale pharma is outdated or wrong. No, not at all. Just to be absolutely sure, what I wanted to say is that that the potential for small countries, well, basically we can't compete with Germany or the USA, right? Because we just basically can't. But what we can is with the data that we can have accessible, by being flexible, by being small country, which means that people know each other, so which means that everything can take days and not weeks or months, as in comparison to Germany or the US, where large corporations are. So this was my point, that we are a small country, but that is an advantage when it comes to most of the startups that have immense potential added value.
I see. Thank you for the clarification. Well, and thank you for your presentation and for taking the time. I hope the Tetra Summit goes well, that you will make some meaningful contacts and come up with some great thoughts. So thank you again for agreeing to spend some time with us this afternoon.
Thank you as well.
Thank you. And I think if Daren is ready to present, we can go to the next. I think it will be a nice bridge. I think it will tie nicely into what Martin was saying, because Daren here is representing the big pharma, which was heavily mentioned in the first presentation. And I know personally that Daren and Roche in general are perceiving this sort of shift and this paradigm shift, and they want to work with small companies on these issues that Martin was mentioning. And just as a brief introduction, Daren is a pharma leader, coach, and an excellent speaker. And currently he's general manager of Roche Slovakia, and he's a former head of product strategy and generally a seasoned pharma executive. And fun fact, he has background in biochemistry. So he studied at UBC in Canada. So he's a scientist transformed into a business leader. Not a great story. And in his presentation, he will shed more light into the startup corporate collaboration, something that Martin has already opened on the floor. So hi there and welcome.
Hi Martin, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good. I was really enjoying Martin's talk. Although, you know, hearing standard pharma, big pharma, I would just like to say innovative pharma. Innovative pharma is the great terms. But I did agree with a lot of what Martin had to say, particularly about Slovakia as being a great ecosystem for innovation and for startups, and for all the reasons that Martin was conveying. The fact that it is a very small ecosystem has huge advantages to be able to move quickly, to experiment and bring innovations to market quickly. So I just wanted to kind of further support the commentary from Martin in that respect.
Sure, definitely. Well, the floor is yours, Daren, and we're looking forward to the insights.
All right, so is it okay if I share my screen here?
Absolutely, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me see if I can do this in a decent way.
And actually, before we start, Daren, can I have one last couple of words?
Yes, please, go ahead, Martin.
Just for everybody to know, I knew exactly that you were speaking, and just for everybody to know that the Roche is really innovative, not in terms of the products, but in terms of the processes. So just for everybody to know that you and your company is very specific and special in this aspect. So
thank you very, very much. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we see it, Daren.
Okay, but how do I get on my full screen mode so I can actually see here? Just 1 second here. Not a problem. I can live with this one here. Let me just move you guys out of the way. Cool. All right. So you're seeing the beautiful explosion in front of everybody's eyes?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Okay. So let me just kind of start off and say welcome to everyone who's joining. And I'm very happy to be here. For me, it's always a pleasure to be talking about topics of innovation and startups and how we can help to improve the healthcare systems that we currently live in. So this is an area that I bring a lot of passion and interest to, and also to really also talk about corporate and startup collaborations, and also I would also add in government collaborations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments. So as introduced, my name is Daren Wilson. I am the general manager with Roche Slovakia, and I'm going to be able to talk to you a little bit about what we've been kind of doing to advance healthcare innovation, not just in Slovakia, but also a little bit what our vision is worldwide. And another part what we'll be talking about a little bit later is that in the spirit of supporting healthcare innovation with startups, we've initiated a startup accelerator called the Healthcare Lab. And it's great because this startup accelerator is coming out of Slovakia. So again, further supporting the comments that Martin Smatana was talking about. And we're going to go and talk a little bit later about the Healthcare Lab. I'm looking forward to introducing you to this concept. So let's just take a few moments to realize, because we put on this dynamic graphic for you to kind of marvel at, but it really reflects the fact that we're at this incredible moment of transformation in healthcare. And we need to recognize that we're at this paradox in time between the delivery of healthcare through traditional means and the delivery of healthcare through digitally technology enablement. And when I was kind of like taking a moment to kind of think about what is it that I'm saying here, I was kind of reflecting, like, I think this moment of time is like a time between the horse buggy and the Ford Model T, or that time of change between even just the typewriter and the computer. And I took this quote because learning and innovation go hand in hand, and the arrogance of success to think that what you did yesterday will be sufficient for tomorrow. And this just really speaks to this moment of time that we're in. We realize that our future is defined by learning and innovation, and we recognize that the journey is not one that we need to walk alone, whether it's one government or a corporate or a startup. And I think the moment of realization coming through COVID for our society and what we've all been through is that, we can actually get much farther on our journey of learning and innovation if we walk together in collaboration and in partnership. And because, this is actually what's needed at this point of time to make the bold moves in order to improve the quality of healthcare and well-being in our societies around the world. So, as challenging as COVID has been for our societies, it's also brought like a lot of powerful realizations and opportunities. And on realizations, it really exposed a lot of the issues in our healthcare systems in many of our countries. So we've seen challenges like patient data flow and the ability to share healthcare information being very problematic in many countries. We've seen the challenges of the regulatory and financial hurdles that are in place in our countries that are slow and bureaucratic and delaying access to innovative healthcare. We've also seen the healthcare systems being very rigid and lacking flexibility to deliver healthcare differently. An example here could be a chronic cancer patient that instead of going to an acute hospital setting and potentially being exposed to COVID, how flexible are our healthcare systems to ensure that that patient can get their chemotherapy or their innovative therapy in the own comfort of their home, as is actually in the case in some Nordic countries already set up. And most importantly, too, in this case, too, we exposed a little bit more the lack of patient centricity in our healthcare systems, and really, the effort of putting the focus around the patient is still an area that I think was exposed quite a bit in this system. And we have to realize that COVID, unfortunately, has had a very negative impact in some cases in the healthcare system. It's had some positive impacts, which I'll talk on, but it's had a very negative impact in patient outcomes. And these outcomes are going to stay with us and materialize even more as time goes on. A great example is around cancer patients. So we know in Central Europe that 62% of surgeries in Central Europe were delayed due to COVID. We also know that there was a 55% drop in diagnosis. And these for us are very important warning signals, because as we come through the COVID pandemic, we also have to realize that we're potentially on the verge of a cancer pandemic. Every one of those delays is a delay of a patient getting diagnosed early, getting better outcomes, and putting the patient in more jeopardy when they do come to the healthcare system, being much more farther with their cancer. And this is really something that unfortunately is in front of us. At the same time, though, we've seen some rapid and incredible breakthroughs. So we saw rapid digital adoption on remote patient care. In many countries, this actually exploded in the ability of the hospital systems to adapt in those cases. We also have seen, so many different patient support tools come out. We've seen the plethora of different startups bringing their ideas to market on how better to support patients at this time. And so this part is just amazing. I think also for the first time, and we have the digital green pass here for COVID, many of the countries now in Europe did a great job to kind of bring this technology to our phones. And now we are literally walking around with a bit of our patient health record on our own phones, identifying, you know, our vaccination status. And I think this is a good sign because it shows what actually is possible when we are in a situation where we have to move quickly, we have to come with and pursue innovation, and we can actually deliver meaningful solutions at scale and rapidly to our systems. And then I think the last part, which has also been a great learning from COVID, one that really speaks to me about a lot, is about the collaboration that we're seeing now and the public-private cooperation that has taken place during a time of emergency status in many of our countries, a time of crisis. So we had situations where different pharmaceutical companies were collaborating together to bring vaccine production up to scale in order to make available for citizens around the world. And we've also seen efforts such as at the EU, at the European Union level, going to centralized procurement to secure vaccines for European citizens and for their member states, and to ensure that there was good quality of care in the distribution of these vaccines. And these are all major breakthroughs that were never happening or happening rarely prior to COVID, and now seem to be more the common effect. I think also what's really interesting now is that it's created this moment of acceleration for digital healthcare transformation. What we're seeing now is that many countries have decided to increase their healthcare spending. So there's a lot of lessons, powerful lessons that COVID has given to governments around the world. And almost every government, not all unfortunately, but almost every government is realizing that this is an opportunity to put the investment into healthcare because healthcare is so critical to the prosperity of the society. And so what we're seeing now is this amplified prioritization of healthcare with governments, and we're seeing the money allocation flow to this. And it's obviously very evident too in the European Union with the recovery and resilience funding and a lot of the EU initiatives such as EU Beating Cancer and the European Health Data Space that are really funneling the monies together in order to help to advance the European Union. And this just creates so many incredible and interesting opportunities for startups because there's these challenges that are out there. They're really important challenges to our societies, and there's a high interest to pursue resolution to them. And so this is really the opportunity for innovation. And I really believe personally that, you know, we have this new sense of speed and action at this moment coming through COVID. I really hope we don't lose it. I hope that many governments and corporates and startups capitalize on this and that we're able to shift quickly to a new reality of how we're going to look at healthcare in our societies and to ensure that we're just doing better in this space and really pursuing the well-being for our citizens. So that's my very strong advocacy part. So, you know, the question remains is like, should we be directing our strategies and what challenges should we be solving? Because in all fairness, in the healthcare system, there are a lot of challenges. There are a lot of areas that we can focus on to bring better, more benefit. And for the most part, what we're seeing now, themes coming out of COVID, is the discussion about how can we pursue healthcare sustainability. So it's not just about putting more money into healthcare, but it's really about getting the efficiencies and effectiveness through our actions on healthcare. And there's a lot of challenges around how can we better this. There's also, you know, how do we augment clinical decision making and the provision of treatment through technologies and data, a huge opportunity for us to pursue and to ensure that we're delivering better care for patients. And then also, I think we're going to see a theme more and more coming through COVID is this sense of patient empowerment and centricity, and how we kind of shift this concept from healthcare to human care. And so, you know, these are great themes for us to look at as we look into the future and what's possible, whether we're a startup, whether we're a corporate, whether we're a government. The thing is that we just can't think about these things. We really need to be acting on them. And so that's a key message here. At Roche, we have a really clear vision for the future and like where we want to be to support healthcare provision for people around the world. Our vision is really around personalized healthcare. personalized healthcare, and what we mean by this is our ability to tailor medical treatment to each patient using digital technologies. So, and this is intended to ensure that we can match the right patient based on their genomic profile to the exact treatment that would give them the highest likelihood of a successful response to therapy. At the same time, by using targeted approaches, we're able to reduce the inefficiencies that exist currently in healthcare by avoiding situations where patients are maybe getting medicines that they're not necessarily going to respond to. And by better targeting treatment and gaining better outcomes, we really believe that this is the strategy that's going to help to reduce healthcare costs in societies around the world. But to do this, we really envision a world where personalized healthcare solutions for patients, we need to adapt. And here, are some of the areas that are quite interesting, particularly for the startups in areas of exploration. When we're looking at genomic profiling, when we're looking at how can we cultivate real-world data, how can we establish real-world data within our healthcare system, so at any given moment we can, a physician in their office with maybe a patient with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, can actually take the profile of that patient and compare rapidly how other patients are doing at that given time and what treatments have been most effective for patients of similar attributes as the patient in front of them. And it'll be just incredible. And I do believe this is in front of us in terms of what will be available in delivering healthcare. We've also believed that how we look at and innovate around pricing and the provision of healthcare, and how we can look at government systems and payer systems and do better here, so that we can ensure that the value that is being invested into healthcare is being delivered ultimately to the patient, and the payers are getting the value, and the innovators such as Roche and other pharmaceutical companies or healthcare companies are getting rewarded for their innovation and creating really win-win opportunities. And then the other part too, which is pretty exciting, is that, and I'll just comment a little bit quickly from the pharmaceutical standpoint. Today, in almost all of our R&D for medicines that we're bringing to the world through our pipeline, we match almost every one of them with a companion diagnostic. This is now where we are in terms of drug discovery and delivery. It's no longer about the medicine itself. It's actually about the system that we put around to ensure that the patient is fully supported and the care is optimized, not just by the treatment, but also by the additional support network that we're providing. So this gives a flavor of where we as a company are looking at. The other thing too is that we at Roche, we're fully aligned with the European Health Data Strategy. We're big advocates that every European country should be getting themselves ready for the European Health Data Strategy. We really believe that the future of healthcare is data. And we recognize that to improve the effectiveness of healthcare systems and the patient journey, that we need the real-time data, quality, accessible, interoperable, that we can leverage this data at scale to clinical quality, and that by doing so, it will allow us to answer critical scientific questions. And Martin was talking about Slovakia, and so Slovakia does have a good data set, but we definitely need to improve on the accessibility, and we definitely need to bring laws into Slovakia that will make the data, secondary use of data, accessible to clinical researchers, to industry, and to other key partners who can utilize this data to help to better the healthcare system and bring innovation forward. Also, absolutely and critically important in that philosophy as well for startups and the solutions that you will be providing. We also, as we said, we recognize that in some cases today, as we were making that analogy in the beginning of the talk about, we're at this kind of time of horse and buggy and Model T Ford, we still do have a lot of healthcare systems that are still horse and buggy. We still have a lot of healthcare systems that are still kind of paper-based, highly bureaucratic. I mean, we know as an example in Europe that an oncologist spends 35% of their day doing paperwork or filling out electronic health records. And that's critical time that is not spent with the patient. So as Martin Smatana was saying, is that, if we do have startups who can help to solve on that problem, who can help to expedite the administrative challenges that physicians face, to streamline the bureaucracy that are in the systems, that gives physicians more time to spend with the patient, even with less physicians in the system, even with less nurses. That's going to be a major win. And these are the kind of innovative solutions we need to be looking for to really help to support the healthcare systems that we have here today. So basically, bottom line is that we need a healthcare upgrade. And there's so many different parts that we can have a meaningful impact on, whether we're talking about how to improve around the diagnosis or the clinical decision support, how we look at upgrading to be smarter on how we're able to provide treatment and get the right treatment to the right patient. And also how we're moving towards value-based, outcome-driven healthcare. So what we mean by this is that when decisions are made by a government or a payer or a healthcare system to provide certain cohorts of patients specific treatment, we're able to measure the impact and effect of that treatment and use that to guide future decisions on treatment accessibility or the provision of bringing in new therapies in for that disease area. So there's a lot that we can do, and that's what makes this moment of time pretty exciting. So at Roche, from our part, we really see working with startups as the opportunity to pursue a lot of the innovative solutions. As we are a big global healthcare company, as a leader in both diagnostics and also in biopharmaceuticals, we know that we can't do everything, but we know that we need the support of many. And so here's an example, our ideas of virtual clinical trials, bringing more software forward as medical devices, finding solutions to really optimize and harness the data analytics and to enable the real-time patient monitoring. These are all areas that we feel are areas where collaboration with startups are critically important, because these are areas that we see in the future that are needed to help to achieve this upgrade of the healthcare system. So to engage and connect with startups, many corporates like Roche, well, we're actually going through agile transformation, and we're moving away from these old hierarchical sales-focused business models. And we're embracing new purpose-driven cultures that are focused on innovation and also on agility and on customer centricity. And this is a great example of Roche Slovakia. So in Slovakia, we have no sales reps. We have no one who is commissioned by sales. We have one mission which sits in our office, and our mission is to help to improve the Slovak healthcare system so that we can deliver better outcomes to more patients faster. And so we put this as a core contribution to our what we feel we can make as meaningful impact in countries like Slovakia. But we also realize that to bring this impact together, we need to focus on how we can build an innovative ecosystem. And this really means bringing more of a startup culture, gaining better collaboration, and striving for faster decision making is necessary in a large organization like ours. And this is actually one of the reasons why we're really interested in reaching out and having meaningful partnerships with startups. It's not just to help to foster the solutions of the startup into the marketplace, but it's also to have mutual learnings between the startup and the corporate learning the startup mindset and benefiting from new ways of thinking and working, and the startup to really have the benefits that is offered from corporate in terms of long-term vision, the different services of HR, compliance, regulatory, the experiences behind that, and the marketing. And so we really see a unique opportunity to really foster this kind of collaboration between the two entities. We also realize that when we look at startups and corporates, and there's some numbers out there, but basically over 50% of startups, they fail to actually find a good corporate partner. And then the question is that because of the startup, or is that actually because of the corporate? And I would probably argue it's a little bit of both. On the corporate side too, years ago when we used to deal with startups, a startup would come to our office And immediately we would see all the deficits of the startup. We would see, okay, they're really good in this vertical, but we are really questioning their ability to deliver because they don't have the rest of what we would expect of any other company, established company that we would normally do business with. And so from that perspective, in the past, we wouldn't necessarily be ready to take on that risk of working with the startup. And then from the startup standpoint, corporates are big, they're bureaucratic. We take a long time for decision making. We have lengthy contracts just to even get through the door to talk with us. So, you know, these can be some of the inherent challenges of working with corporates. So, you know, on this part, it actually takes a bit of change on both sides. And on the corporate side, and what we're doing at Roche is that we're really focusing on mindset and behavioral shifts with our people. We are transitioning again from this older way of looking at the world and really moving towards this purpose-driven, agile way where we're focusing on innovation, we're leaning towards innovation, and we're really looking to see how can we be customer-centric and bring healthcare solutions to the market as fast as possible, and solutions that are designed to meet the customer's needs, not necessarily in the past like what we thought the customer needed. So this is a little bit about how we're kind of transitioning. And, you know, on this too, then I'd like to introduce to you the Healthcare Lab. And the Healthcare Lab is a startup accelerator. It's powered by Roche and EIT Health. And this is our initiative to create this opportunity of collaboration and support between Roche as our pharma and diagnostics organization, also with meaningful partners of EIT Health, and to see what we can do to help to address some of those challenges I mentioned earlier and bring solutions rapidly to market by supporting startups from Central Europe and other areas. What we're targeting with this program as a Central European acceleration program is really for early stage digital healthcare ventures. We're really looking for startups that, you know, you may have a little bit of funding to a lot, which is fine, but you are at your beginning. You're maybe in your pre-seed or your seed level of your journey in terms of your funding. You have an amazing idea, and you really need that support, that catalyst to kind of help you get that idea further. These are the kind of startups that we're looking for in this program. At Roche, we have other programs also within our organization that are well established for startups that are a little bit farther along their journey and they're ready to scale their products to a greater degree. We have a program called Creosphere outside or in Munich of Germany, and it's designed exactly also to help these startups gain a much more international market exposure to their initiatives. So with the Healthcare Lab, then in our case, what we're looking to do is really how can we connect and grow and nurture basically this community around innovation, around startups, around corporates, involving other key stakeholders in the mission as well, people from government, health insurance companies. And this is really focused about how do we bring amazing innovation in healthcare to patients faster. Now, this is the second time that we're running the Healthcare Lab. So we've already run one batch out of Slovakia for Central Europe. We did that just a little over a year ago. And in fact, in the previous presentation by Martin Smatana, when he had the slide of the different Slovak startups, one of the startups, S-Case, was one of the startups that participated in our first batch. And S-Case got a lot of value through our Healthcare Lab. They were doing remote diagnostic solutions. And in this case, they had some grants from the United Nations in Africa and Macedonia. And the benefit of partnering with a company like Roche was that we were able to connect them to our diagnostics and our pharma business partners in Africa, so they can actually get on the ground experience about what the market is like there and what they need to do to further their ideas. And I have to say to the S-Case team also, if they're here or hearing this, I mean, you guys are doing an amazing job. They've been incredibly successful coming out of the first batch of the Healthcare Lab Accelerator, and something we're really proud of as a representative of innovative startups coming out of Slovakia. This year, though, we're doing it a little bit different. We are doing predefined healthcare challenges. So we're going to be focusing around the topics of health data. We're going to be also looking at digital therapeutics and disease management. And then also we're going to be looking at screening and how to improve around diagnostics. So we have these three big buckets that we will be looking at initiating. And in terms of this this program, we've put a lot of resources and effort behind the program. So as mentioned, this is a program we're doing in partnership with EIT Health as a body of the European Union. We're also in partnership with Civitta for this initiative. And then at Roche, between both our pharmaceutical and our diagnostics division, we have over 10 countries involved in the initiative throughout Central Europe, also including Turkey. And we also have a leadership team that represents global interests, both from our pharmaceutical and our diagnostic division. So this also just demonstrates the importance as an organization that we see behind having good, meaningful collaboration in the healthcare space between corporates and startups. For this program, we really want this program to be beneficial for those that join. So, you know, this is going to be an opportunity for those that participate to have a lot of access to top healthcare industry experts and business leaders. And also we will have venture capitalists involved in the program. So you will have a full platform of what you need to be able to get the information, support to advance your ideas. And also, you know, we'll also support around mentoring and moving the initiatives forward. So this is a little bit about the program. We're going to be kicking this off in about 2 weeks. So applications for the Healthcare Lab are going to start October 18th to 19th. We will take the next few months to do the screening process and select the 8 to 10 startups that will participate in this program. And the acceleration program will really start in January for the first Q1 into Q2 of 2022. If you are here and you're kind of interested in this, whether to follow it, to gain information from it, or if you are a startup listening in and you do want to apply, we're just getting our landing page up and running. So at least you can go and see it right now at www.healthcarelab.eu. Really encourage you to take a look at it, be part of it. If you are a startup and this is an area that resonates with you, we fully welcome you to consider to participate and put your application in. And if you're not, and if you're also an audience member just listening in on this kind of initiative, we're going to be very active around this topic. So this will be very visible for many of you, and you'll have the opportunity to basically listen in and follow the different journey that we will go through in supporting the startups and the different activities that we will have around the challenges that we're providing. If any of this resonates with you and you do want to follow up on the conversation that I'm providing you today, I'm quite accessible. You can obviously connect with me through my LinkedIn program. Definitely love to hear from you. And with that, Martin, I'm happy to take any questions or address any comments from the presentation.
Thank you very much, Daren. Very cool presentation and great insights from how pharma is looking at advancing the healthcare in collaboration with other partners, not only startups, but also public entities and also other big private entities. Because as we discussed many times, we can't do this alone. We all have to collaborate. If there are any questions from the audience, we're happy to take them on. I think I would have maybe one question, maybe digging deeper. One comment for Healthcare Lab. If anyone is interested, you can sign up for the newsletters. In the meantime, we'll be sending more information on that as well. But so bridging to my question, sorry, I just had to plug that in. One question I would have maybe more deeply on a Roche or corporate sort of collaboration. I think you nicely mentioned that what a big corporate can provide is that vision and that drive that maybe some startups may lack. But what else do you think? Maybe let me rephrase the question. What do you think are other so obviously, apart from aligning on the vision, that startup aligns with the vision of the corporate, there's an alignment. What other things in that relationship do you think are important for it to be a meaningful collaboration, apart from sharing that vision into the future of healthcare?
Sure. So in this case, a meaningful collaboration, it's two ways. And so on our front, we offer access to different experts from around the globe. We have over 90,000 employees. We're on the leading edge of technology on many different fronts. So we're able to actually make the connections between startups and the people in our company that are, let's say, doing AI driven imaging for diagnostics, working with blockchain initiatives or other kind of higher level data management or data science. We basically have somebody in our organization who's probably a world leader in that space, and this gives us an opportunity to make these kind of connections. So that's a really rich value. Part of the challenge for startups is, how do you get into a corporate? How do you find the right people? How do you make those right connections? So that's one thing that this kind of collaboration will help to simplify and improve. On the other side, as I mentioned too, and this was a great example of what we had here in Slovakia, is that we really appreciate the talent that lives in startups. This kind of looking at the world as an opportunity, failing fast and experimenting and really kind of just grinding to get through amazing projects in quick ways and innovative ways. So from that part, as Slovakia, we invited, as you recall from Healthcare Lab, we invited them to come to our office and to basically do a hackathon with us around the challenges we're facing to build our business plan. And I have to say that was enriching. It helped our people to kind of see a different way of looking at problems and a different way to pursue the solutions. And also with many people in startups being so digitally enabled, it was just amazing to also see how fast and how quick prototypes and digital solutions could be put together in this kind of method. So on our part too, we're learning, and it's great learning for us to have in that kind of collaboration.
Sure, definitely. That sounds very exciting, and I recall that hackathon. It was very, very enriching. I was also part of that. So yeah, unless if you have any sort of closing remarks or messages that you'd like to highlight, maybe one key takeaway that you'd like the viewers to take away from this, you can share the closing remark.
Sure. Maybe I just want to kind of still re-emphasize on the previous speaker on Martin, because we are talking also here a little bit about Slovakia, and I just also want to say that great ideas can come from anywhere, and Slovakia is no different. There's a lot of talent and bright minds in Slovakia, and I really encourage people that if you're listening to this and you do have an idea and you are in your country, don't sit on it, pursue it, go for it. And if it's good enough, it's going to find its way forward, and then you'll come in and meet the likes of us in corporate, and we'll do what we can to kind of help you move even farther ahead. So I just want to encourage people to stay on that innovative path. We need you. The society needs you. We got to do better with healthcare, and let's do it together. So that's my final concluding comment.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think every speaker had the same message. So I think it's a nice storyline for this. And I think to any of the viewers that are running a startup or are currently part of the global expansion readiness program, are pursuing ideas and are trying to make commercially viable businesses out of them. So all the kudos goes to them for taking the initiative. And we're joining the message as Civitta, and we're here to collaborate with any of you as well. So thank you very much for that, Daren.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So also thank you goes to anyone who has joined us over the course of this afternoon, or to anyone who's viewing us on YouTube later on. And I hope you took away some useful messages or some useful contacts that you will pursue in the future. And feel free to knock on our doors, virtual doors, or even physical ones if you come around here in Slovakia. We're happy. Any of these people would be happy to meet with you. And with that, I would like to close this webinar and wish everyone good luck and good weekend to anyone who is watching us currently. Thank you and goodbye.